Hello and welcome to BlockchainGamer.biz's weekly news roundup for the week ending 11th July 2025. Unfortunately, Jenny is ill today, so stepping into her shoes is me. I'm Rachel, one of the voices from 11 Labs using its V3 Alpha model. But let's get straight into the news. First up, Gunzilla Games announced its Gun token was expanding from its own Gunz blockchain on Avalanche to Solana. Seems like an odd thing to do. John, what's your take?
Yeah, good question. And thanks for stepping in to those big boots so quickly, Rachel. So this is an odd one. So Gunzilla Games has obviously sort of built its reputation on two things. One, it's making this massive game called Off the Grid, first console shooter. It's sort of loads more to come on that release. It's in a test phase. But it's got big plans coming to Steam fairly soon. So it's really focused on this sort of AAA blockchain based game where a lot of the in-game items are NFTs. But it's not just about the game. In combination, it is also about the blockchain it's built. So it's built what they call the Gunz blockchain. That's built using Avalanche's technology. And at the moment, as I say, most of the people playing that game are playing on the Gunz testnet. So I think they have getting on for 18 million accounts have been made there. Obviously, they're not all real players, or people maybe having multiple accounts. But it's moving over to the mainnet for Gunz. So there's only a few 21,000 people have been moved. Accounts have been moved over at the moment, and they're waiting to get a license, actually a money license, so they can have a custodial license for people's assets. So that's what they've been waiting for. At least that's what they say. So up until this week, it was sort of all about Gunzilla Games focused on Avalanche, very closely working with Avalanche. One of the big projects on Avalanche, I guess, alongside Nexon and its MapleStory universe stuff. And then suddenly, out of the blue, at least to my thinking, they announced they were taking the Gun token, which currently, is the native token for the Gunz blockchain. It is the gas token for the Gunz blockchain. It is the payment method for NFTs on the Gunz blockchain for Off the Grid. And suddenly said, we're just going to we're going to do that on Solana as well. So I did actually listen to the spaces that they did around it. The CEO Vlad. And also Piers Kick. I have to say I didn't really learn very much from that. 45 minutes, I'll never get back. But one of the reasons, the main reason I think that they've sort of said is that Solana is a sort of a new audience for them. They think so. They haven't said a big audience. That's why I was waiting there. But I think it clearly is a bigger audience. So Avalanche is highly respected as a blockchain and has a lot of interesting stuff going on it. But it has a slightly different sort of model where people run their own sort of infrastructure within Avalanche. I won't go into all the details, even if I understand it. Whereas Solana, has gone through a few phases. Obviously, it sort of started out as an Ethereum killer, and some people think it sort of, is an Ethereum killer. So get people saying Solana's going to flip Ethereum. But in terms of people building a lot of very important stuff on Solana, it's clearly not. That's not happened. There's a big sort of game explosion, 2020 sort of two-ish. Everyone moving to Solana, and that's all pretty much died off. There are still some games there, but a lot of the games on Solana have moved off or have moved to multi-chain. So it's not really a place where you go to for gaming. It is the place though for meme coins, and there's been a lot of trading on there. Obviously, transaction fees are very cheap. Transaction fees are quite cheap on Ethereum at the moment, anyway, as well. But with Pump Fun, the sort of meme coin launchpad, Solana's really kicked off there. So there's loads of sort of degen trading around that and loads of sort of culture and memes and all that sort of stuff on Solana. And then that was really accelerated this year, 2025, by the launch of the Trump meme coin and various other sort of adjacent meme coins around sort of the Trumposphere. So the Trump token sort of exploded. Loads of people who'd never got into blockchain before suddenly sort of piled into Solana. There's some good infrastructure there, the wallets and stuff around sort of Phantom is the sort of historically the main wallet that's been used there. So they've all sort of really kicked into gear, and particularly in the US, Solana is sort of maybe sort of presenting itself as sort of the US, the fast US blockchain, and Ethereum in sort of contrast is in some places being sort of portrayed as the sort of the EU by committee blockchain that isn't doing very well, certainly on price. Although the price of the Solana sold token isn't particularly high at the moment either. But there's just a sort of meme thing, a sort of vibe thing around Solana. And clearly that's what Gunzilla is going after. Whether it means they're going to do something a bit more serious than just porting their token over so people can buy it, I don't know. I mean, the the gun token is sort of fairly widely available on Binance and places like that. It's not as in sort of dexes, it's not so widely available, but who cares about dexes, I suppose. It's all about sort of centralized exchanges. So they may just feel they're sort of playing into something on Solana. Whether they actually move any infrastructure onto Solana, that seems harder to do. I mean, the whole point of sort of Gunzilla is they're building this massive Gunzy blockchain, and they want other, sort of developers, AAA developers, to be using that infrastructure. That's why they've built it. And in a sense, Off the Grid, is an expensive game to have built, but it's supposed to be showcasing the sort of the blockchain. So that's the sort of I guess the sort of epic thing of building a game Unreal and building Unreal Engine that people can then use and use sort of make money off both of them. So it's hard to see they're going to be putting stuff on Solana more than just the token, but I guess wait and see. I guess the other thing is they are a bit nervous about the gun token price, which has basically been sort of dropped to about 75% since it launched. It's increased a little bit recently, like some coins have. Seems to be a little bit of sort of an uptick in sentiment. Obviously for Bitcoin, new all-time high. So I think they're just doing it really for the token price. That's my gut feeling. But you sort of it does make you wonder a little bit what the long-term plans are around what blockchain to use. And interesting if that's the case, because they have been very, very tightly linked to Avalanche, and Avalanche is sort of been very tightly linked to Gunzilla Games, and if there's sort of a bit of movement there, that would be certainly interesting to see. So we'll keep an eye on that one.
Okay, so this is all about whether Gunzilla is just looking to pump the gun token price, or whether this is more of a significant move in terms of its long-term blockchain strategy. I'll keep an eye on that for future episodes. Of course, the other big news for Gunzilla is migrating all those testnet accounts to the Guns mainnet. That's when we'll get a better idea of how many regular players Off the Grid has. But onto the next item. AI Web3 game-making engine Remix, which was previously called Farcade, has raised $5 million in its seed funding round, from investors including Archetype, Coinbase Ventures, Variant, Lemniscap, and our old friends, South Korean Web3 game publisher Planetarium. You love a good funding story. What's the skinny on this news, John?
Yes, our old friends, South Korean Web3 game publisher Planetarium. Good spot there. So I do love a good funding story. And we've had a few actually. Had a big one last week. Not such a big one this week, but for a sort of a game making sort of seed fund, seed round, not terrible, 5 million. So as you say, originally what is now called Remix. It was called Farcade. So the reason it was called Farcade was it was using the Farcaster sort of social, so sort of a Web3 social platform which runs on Base, and it's not really taken off, that one. So there's lots of interesting sort of tech stuff you can do there with this thing called sort of frames, and it's sort of a way of embedding sort of NFTs and embedding interactive experiences into this sort of feed. So it's interesting for Web3 sort of people, but it's never really got that sort of mass market appeal, that sort of network effect that you need for a social media platform. So makes sense if they want to sort of actually make money and sort of aggressively find audience. You can't really do that on Farcade, on Farcaster, because it's just not big enough, and it's sort of not very clear that that's going to grow very quickly. So they've renamed themselves to Remix. Not a great name, I would say, but who am I to say that? This funding round is raised on the basis that it's going to go much wider. So it's obviously it's still on Farcaster, but it's now looking at Telegram. It's also looking at the World app, so Sam Altman's sort of ID system is doing some stuff on there. I'm not sure that's going to be a mass market sort of thing, but maybe will be. Who knows? So I think they're going to go sort of platform agnostic in terms of where these games can live. In terms of the game making sort of bit of it, it is sort of in a sense, I guess, sort of wrapped AI, in the sense that you if you go to the remix.gg website, you see a little box and you type in what game you want to make, and it's AI sort of makes it for you. So sort of a no coding sort of mini game sort of maker. There are a lot of these things out there at the moment. From most of them are nothing to do with Web3. So this obviously has Web3 in it. I'm not actually quite sure. I've played some of the games, but I'm not quite sure where the Web3 bit sits. So that will be obviously in terms of monetization. That's pretty important because there's loads of mini games, hyper casual games. A lot of those are ad funded because you can't really put in-app purchases in them because they're not interesting enough. They're not long term enough. We'll see how it gets on. As you say, the investors were a reasonable sort of a set of investors. Archetype, not done a lot of game stuff, but pretty well known, been in crypto for a long time. Obviously, Coinbase Ventures, not surprised because of the base interaction variant, Lemniscap and Planetarium. No idea what Planetarium are doing in that funding round, I have to say. And 5 million doesn't get you that far, to be honest, in these days. So good to see that people are funding these sort of still funding things when it comes to sort of tech, Web3 game tech. But I think the sort of challenge for this sort of company is this challenge for anyone making these sort of AI games. How's your engine better than anyone else doing sort of AI led games? And the bigger thing with these sort of mini games, how do you actually make money off them? That's sort of the key thing. So we'll as you say, keep an eye on that one.
Next up, our friends at Voya Games have completed their Project Voyager play-to-airdrop campaign for Craftworld's DynoCoin. I know you were grinding in the hopes of getting a top 100 position. John, how did you get on in the end?
You got a lot of friends, haven't you? Yes, our friends at Voya Games. Optimistically at one point I said I was going to get top 100. I think it became realistic fairly quickly that wasn't going to be the case, and I wasn't even getting the top 1,000, which I didn't. I was in I can't remember the number now. Top sort of 1,300, but that's ranked in sort of 25,000, as you say, 25,000. Top 25,000 players get some DynoCoin. So that's what's sort of happening now for the. They've not given a formal date when the project, the token goes live, because they're waiting for the Craftworld to go live on the Ronin blockchain. That's sort of obviously the sort of key part of it, because the DynoCoin token is going live on the Ronin blockchain as well. So they get 2 weeks. They're going to look at everyone's account who's sort of made it in the top 25,000, and if there's any bots or cheaters, they're going to get removed. Hopefully everyone will move up a bit. And then, when the game goes live, everyone will get the live DynoCoin. I mean, as I've said many times, it's designed to be a sort of transactional utility token. It's not designed to be a token that you speculate on. There's no point holding that token. It's designed to be used in game to buy resources, and in the sort of Craftworld game, you're unlocking sort of different factories, and so you use that token to get more of the resources you need to do the things that you need to do in the game. I guess an interesting part of it will be what happens when Craftworld goes live on Ronin. I imagine they will have some a decent roadmap for some sort of integrations, some events with third-party companies. That's what they've done in the past. You play the main Craftworld game, and then there's these sort of other pop-up events that happen over a limited period of time where you can get some sort of other assets from external to Craftworld. They have said they're doing a Tamagotchi game as well, DynoGotchi. So that will be I imagine probably launching at the same time as well, and that will also give utility to the coins, the DynoCoins. But I don't think it won't. I mean, I'm guessing here. I don't think people will be able to sort of cash out those coins. There must be some ability to do that to some degree, but I don't think there'll be a lot of sort of liquidity there. So it's not like a normal airdrop campaign where people get X number of coins and then they go to Binance and sell them all off. This token will not be listed on centralized exchanges. So it's much more. This is giving you like a head start. It's giving you some booster packs for when the game goes live, rather than this is giving you some money to sort of cash out. So and obviously that's the way it should be. I thoroughly approve of what Craftworld is doing. I think we're going to see, we are already seeing the most thoughtful blockchain games doing this sort of thing. You can't just give people extractive value in the game. You have to give them, you give them value in the game to go further in the game and keep playing the game and hopefully spend money in the game. And extraction does come in these games, but it doesn't come for every sort of player. It comes for a certain type of player who does specific things in the game, and maybe not for that player at every point as well. So I think we're learning, and I think Craftworld is a good example to look at, to see what the sort of the most enlightened developers are doing around this sort of space of sort of play to earn. Yeah.
Continuing the theme, Sky Mavis has released the first version of Ronin Profiles. which is its new reputation system that will look to combine what people are doing on-chain with their social activity.
Yes, so that is a good point and a good sort of segue from what we were previously talking about, and this is what looks like a more formalized approach from Sky Mavis. So yeah, ID systems sort of all the rage. Obviously, Mocha Chain and Mochaverse are sort of doing their thing. Animoca's baby when it comes to ID and reputation. I not think they've made that much progress, and the point of Mocha Chain is they want to be cross-platform, cross-chain, and sort of linking into everything. Obviously, it's a bit easier for Ronin because Ronin is obviously the Ronin chain and all the apps, all the games that are on there. So to a degree, they care about what you're doing on the Ronin chain. They don't really necessarily care about what you're doing on Abstract or Ethereum or Arbitrum or anything like that. Although with this, as far as I can tell, with this Ronin profile, you can attach other blockchain wallets. So the basic idea is it's sort of the Ronin profile is part of the sort of existing Ronin wallet. Currently only working on desktop, but we'll go to mobile. Currently what they're calling an MVP, minimum viable product. There's lots of bits in there that are not working at the moment. So pretty bare bones, but you sort of get the idea about what they're doing there. So you have to, if you have a wallet already that uses the Waypoint email system, you log in with that, and then you can attach the sort of the other wallets like extension wallets and that sort of thing. But you have to start off with the email wallet first. I don't quite know, obviously technical reasons around keys and stuff, I imagine. And what you do is you sort of sign in. You can have up to 6 wallets. You sign in with those wallets, doing a transaction, and then obviously it reads everything you've got in those wallets. So it gives you, to some degree, gives you like a portfolio balance of everything you've got in those wallets, and it can look at stuff like staking, although it can't look at stuff like pixel staking at the moment, at least. So you get an idea of your activity and your NFTs and your tokens. But the real focus it's looking on is sort of activity and bringing in social. So you can connect some social media stuff in there. Usual, I think it's Facebook, definitely Twitter, obviously, and they can start to sort of combine these off-chain, on-chain activities, and doesn't anywhere give you a reputation sort of score or anything at the moment. That will be coming. And obviously it will link into things that like you'll do quests that will sort of give you probably reputation points. Actually, we'll say Pixels is a game that really has this at the moment. So when you play Pixels, you do certain things, it builds up your reputation system in the game. So Pixels has really led the line on this, and it's working on its own sort of reputation system. Ronin, Pixels runs on Ronin, but this Ronin profile is a different thing. Although they may be sort of interlinked at some point. There's also things you can log in and have like a daily login, so you can sort of see how often you're logging in, and you can imagine how this thing is going to sort of be fleshed out in future. And to my point, it's sort of weird that this hasn't happened more. This thing hasn't happened sooner, because clearly everything on a blockchain is data that's attached to a wallet. And if we're going to reward people, we obviously want to be rewarding people who have what we think or what our ecosystem thinks is the best behavior. So it's sort of weird that it's taken us this long to get to this point.
Finally, this week, there are some big numbers that I think we should discuss. First, Ronin RPG Lumiterra's Mega Drop Part 1 campaign has seen it surpass 600,000 daily active unique wallets. Second, the most expensive NFT traded in MapleStory N sold for $23,319. Finally, Messi is now tradable in FIFA Rivals. The cheapest version is $11,517, or you could get Harry Kane for a mere $408.
Good. Well, we always like big numbers, don't we? Numbers going up and to the right, as they say, and certainly with Bitcoin. We've seen that this week. So let's have some big numbers in blockchain gaming. So to pick up your first example, Lumiterra is back. So Lumiterra is a pixel MMORPG that's actually been playable as a Web 2 game for over a year, I think now. But it's coming to Ronin. They've done various closed beta tests last year, and actually their first one peaked at over 800,000 daily active unique wallets. That's not wallets playing the game. That's sort of clicking around the ecosystem sort of thing for token airdrops. And so we know there's an audience for this sort of game on Ronin. So Lumiterra was actually the biggest of those sort of in development games last year, only beaten out by Pixels doing 1 million daily active unique wallets at one stage. So we've been all sort of waiting for Lumiterra to go live. It's still not going live. What it's doing now is what they call the mega drop part 1. They are actually giving out 10% of the Lumi token. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It's not actually really playing the game. It's stuff around sort of socials and stuff around staking items of the game that are already out, NFTs and stuff. So we're seeing, we're not going to see that many people play the game when it goes live. We are seeing, as we always know, loads of wallets can be driven towards a activity, on-chain activity, when they think they're going to get some money out of it. So that's partly what we're seeing. I guess it's sort of better news for Ronin in the sense that we've not seen very much going on this year in Ronin. So it sort of proves that sort of virality is still there, but it's still a case of when Lumiterra goes live, which I think actually will be a fairly good game, if not maybe as mass market as people think. Is hardcore crafting sort of farming battle sort of game. So I'm not quite sure how many, how big an audience it'll have when it goes live, but it's good to see that sort of stuff kicking off on Ronin, and we're seeing that a little bit with Ronin as well. We'll get some numbers next week, I think, for Craft World and its Project Voyager play to airdrop, which is just closed. So we don't know how many people were on that, but certainly hundreds of thousands. So that's interesting to see. Second two you're looking at there was NFTs. So different sort of number, but sort of showing how much people want to spend for very high end items. In MapleStory N, it's people buying characters. And we've seen, since the game went live like 2 months ago now, a steady increase in the most expensive NFT. So I think the first one was started off about $8,000 or $9,000, and now we're into the $20,000 mark. So it just shows, again, these numbers can sort of be faked. Someone can do wash trading or that sort of thing. But we're seeing these numbers steadily go up, and we expect on a big sort of grindy game like that people will be coming up with these very rare items and gear, attaching them to characters, leveling up characters to a very high level. People will want those characters for some level of game utility, but mainly because they're sort of the highest level characters in the game. And some people want to own the most valuable characters, and if you're a millionaire, you can sort of do that sort of stuff. So, or if you're a crypto millionaire, of course. So that's interesting to just see. And I guess it's not so much the money there; it's the how this has gradually sort of gone up. Probably like obviously 3 times the value now. And I unless something very serious happens in that game, I expect us to keep seeing that number go up. FIFA Rivals is a newer game, and that's, I guess, a bit more interesting because it has the real world component it has real world footballers in there. They've only just unlocked that a week ago, the ability to sort of craft these legendary characters. So we're seeing at the moment very high prices. Again, that's not prices that are being traded on. I'm not seeing any data on that at the moment. This is just prices, and if you go to the marketplace, this is what people are trying to sell them at. So Messi obviously is a singular sort of character when it comes to football. I would point out that within FIFA Rivals, Ronaldo's not in there, or maybe some of the other more famous footballers are not in there. Neymar Jr., say as an example, he's not in there. So they've got a licensing issue. They've got some licenses, but not others. But obviously Messi is the one that everyone knows. Like everyone knows, whatever, whoever the American football player or LeBron in basketball. So Messi just a singular player. He's actually not that much more powerful than you said Harry Kane. I think like Messi's 96 and Harry Kane's 94. I think in that game. So obviously you're not paying for the power of that player, the utility of that player in the game. You're playing because it's Messi. And there's only a few of that legendary sort of level. So there's Messi, Harry Kane, Rodri, like one or two sort of others. But I guess if people, the interesting thing about NFTs, and not just about games, but certainly NFTs in games where people are sort of minting these things out, is people do want those sort of to flex those very high level characters, even if the game utilities doesn't matter so much. But over time, the interesting thing I think with FIFA Rivals compared to MapleStory N, I think the price will keep going up. I think in FIFA Rivals, the price will start going down because there's more of these characters are minted out. You need to collect 5 fragments and then mint the character out. Obviously, there's more of that. As more of those are made, then obviously the price drops because you're creating more of them. Whereas in MapleStory N, it's a slightly different sort of scarcity model. So there's just sort of something to watch. But I think it's not the be all and end all of an NFT economy when you have very high prices. But obviously that's a sort of KPI that if you're running one of those economies, you do want to see at some level, some of these very rare items, however they are measured as being rare, going for larger amounts of money.
Thank you, John, for letting me co-host the podcast this week. It's been tremendous fun. No, really, Bink.
And thanks to everyone for listening to the end. Please don't forget to subscribe to the show to ensure you don't miss your weekly dose of sweet blockchain gaming news. But now, it's time for me to see if I can apply for one of those super lucrative AI jobs that Zuck is handing out. LLM over and out.